Welcome to my class, and in this I'm going to continue on with determinants of demand, which we did in the last class. As you can see that we learnt it as O tie. O is demand is determined by the price of its own good, then it's affected by the price of related goods, be it substitute or complementary. So O. T is for tastes and preferences. It's affected by the tastes and preferences of the consumer. It is affected by I, that is income of the consumer. And then it is also affected by the expectations of the consumer. So based on this, I'm going to just explain each of these with the help of a diagram. Now look at this. In this we see that when the price falls, then the demand increases. So you can see it over here, like from OP0 the price has fallen to OP1, and so the quantity demanded, you can see, from OP0, here the OP0 price was OP0, from there the price increases to OP1, so the demand decreases. So there's a fall in demand, or there's a contraction of demand. So that determinant, this is one determinant. Higher the price, lower the demand, and vice versa, other determinants remaining unchanged. So now we're going to talk about the price of related goods. Now let's just take substitute goods, which are also known as competitive goods. So in this case, you can see this diagram. In this we are talking about, say, the price of, let's consider Coke and Pepsi as perfect substitutes. It doesn't matter whichever you have, whichever you consume, it gives you equal satisfaction. They're perfect substitutes, suppose. Now suppose if the price of Coke rises, so then what happens? If the price of Coke rises, say from P0 to P1, then the demand for Pepsi will increase from OQ0 to OQ1. So, and well, that can be seen as the expansion as a cross demand, as you see. But if you look at this figure, for example, let us take this figure where this one, in this, when the price of Coke rises, so what happens? Given the price, that is the assumption, the price of Pepsi doesn't change. So what will happen? People will demand more of Pepsi. And in the other diagram, what happens? If the price of Coke falls, then what happens? Then the price of Pepsi remaining the same, there will be a decrease in demand for Pepsi. So you can see that. So let's take the other one, that is again price of related goods. In this, let's take complementary goods. Now in the complementary goods, let's take petrol and car. Now suppose the price of the petrol falls from P0 to P1. Then what happens? If the price falls, the demand for cars will increase. So these goods go hand in hand, but there's an inverse relation between their price and demand. So now talking about, like for example, now if the price of petrol has risen, now suppose if the price of petrol has fallen, look at this. If the price of petrol has fallen and we see that the price of car remain the same, so what happens? The demand for cars will increase, right? So on the other hand, if you see that in here you see if there's an increase in the price of petrol, then what happens? prices of car remaining the same, there will be a fall in the demand for cars. So this is how we explain the concept with this. Now let's take tastes and preferences. Tea. Okay, we are going to talk about tea. Now, in this we notice that if there is a favorable attitude towards the change in price, preference, sorry, if the preference is favorable for a particular commodity, then what happens? There'll be an increase in demand at the same price. And again, if there's an unfavorable change, then what will happen? As you see, there's a decrease in demand at the same price. So that could be due to changes in fashion and things like that. Then income. Now talking about income. So in this, when we are talking about income, we talk about what is known as normal goods and inferior goods. Now talking about normal goods, you find that if the income increases, then the demand will rise. That also will rise for normal goods. And if the income falls, the demand for normal goods will fall. But when you're taking inferior goods, it happens that if your demand, if your income increases, then what happens? You will no more demand that inferior commodity. So the demand for the inferior commodity will come down. So that is the relation we talk about, say, normal goods and inferior goods that I explained in the previous class. So in this, I'm just giving you how to go about with the help of a diagram. And then we have expectations. So in the expectations, like for example, if the consumer expects that, suppose he expects a huge shortage of a commodity in the near future, so his present demand for the commodity will rise even at the existing price. And suppose if he feels there's going to be an abundance, for example, now let's just take the prices of onions. If we feel, okay, today it's very expensive, but say within about 15 days the prices will fall, so you sort of postpone it, your demand will fall actually. You are not going to buy at the present price. So expectations do play a part in for determining the demand. Now, interestingly, talking about inferior goods, once again, let me just tell you, for example, if we take the example of, we talked about inferior goods with the help of income and demand for inferior goods. Suppose if at the present income, you demand the services of the auto rickshaw for travel. Okay, and suppose now, given the prices of, say, the taxi service, say Uber, remaining unchanged, they are the same, and suppose the prices, suppose your income goes higher, so what do? Yeah, your demand for say auto services will come down, because in your eyes it's an inferior commodity or service, as you see. So that's how we can sort of practically understand what are the determinants and how the various factors affect the demand. It's not that we are not even thinking about these, but somewhere deep down these things are working in our psyche when we decide on increasing our demand or decreasing our demand or expanding our demand or contracting our demand. So in the next class we're going to do the law of demand.